Today, what we'll do is basically, look at how you can, if you have two virtual networks. Imagine, you have two virtual networks, you have two subnets over there, and you have a couple of VMs within, different virtual networks. So by default, there is no connectivity between the virtual network. So we'll see how we can use the VNet peering or the virtual network peering to perform, connectivity between the two uh, VMs or two virtual networks. So let's go to portal.azure.com, log on to your account, and the first thing that we are going to do is basically we'll go step by step. We'll create we'll go to the resource groups. We'll create the resource group first. So we'll name it as network. Peering test -rg. We'll place it in the east to west. Review and create. Okay, since the resource group is created, let's open the resource group and we'll create two virtual networks right now. We'll keep it in the same resource group, which is the VNet peering test. And the first one, I'll name it as VNet A. This again is going to be in the East US region. We'll go to next, IP addresses. And what I'll do is basically change the subnet name to subnet A. And rest I'll leave everything as is, and then I'll go move on to the next one, which is tags. Nothing on the tags. Review and create and create. Okay, so this is also provision. So we'll provision our different virtual network now, which is going to be our VNet B. So you can see VNet A is already been provisioned, and now I'll create. We'll keep it in the same resource group, and I'll name it as VNet B. Next. And here, what I'll do is basically change the address space. So that's the main thing that you have to take care. That is, the network space between the virtual network should be different. So I'll delete this. I'll provision new subnet, and I'll name this as subnet B. Okay, so I'll keep the defaults as is. Only the range has been changed here, side range. So I'll see. And go to next, and create. Alright, so both our virtual networks have been provisioned. So what we'll do is basically we'll create the virtual machine and we'll place it in our different virtual networks. So we'll go to virtual machines. We'll create one first. Okay, I'll place it in the same VNet peering test RG. I'll name this as VNA. It will be in the East US, the availability zone. I don't want any infrastructure redundancy there. And security type is fine. I'll go and select 2019 data center. Okay, I'll provide a name here. I'll leave the inbound ports as 80 and I'll select one more, which is HTTP, because we'll be installing IIS and checking how we can access it using our the private IP address. So let's select that. Let's go next. Yes. Next networking. Yeah. So in the networking part, you can see it has, I'm placing this in the virtual network A, which is going to be this VNet A. Under the subnet A, this VM would be there. So we'll go there. Now we'll leave everything as is. We'll go next for management, monitoring, advanced, tags, review. And while this is being provisioned, what I'll do is basically open the portal.azure.com in a different tab, and we'll provision our VMB as well. So we'll go to the virtual machines, create a virtual machine here. We'll choose the resource group as is. We'll name this as VMB. The region would be East US, and redundancy plan over there. We'll select the image as the same data center, 2019 data center, and again, we'll select port 80 as well. We'll move on to the networking. And here now you can see it is in the virtual network A, but we'll change it to virtual network B, and the subnet is again B. So this is how the setup is right now. So the second VMB is in the virtual network B, and the subnet is this. So we'll move on. Things for management, monitoring, noise, facts, create, and create. And I'm sure by now our VMB will be provisioned. So yeah, that is done. So we'll open our VMA. Sorry, I was talking about VMA. We'll connect to VMA. Okay, native RDP. Yes, it's fine. Let's download the RDP file. So what we'll do is basically first install I'm just waiting for this to open up, and what we'll do is basically install the IIS on this machine. And what we'll do is basically from the VMB, we'll try to access it using first our public IP, and that should be easily accessible. And then we'll try to access it using our private IP, and which would not work. And that's where we'll see how we can make it work by adding our peering between the two virtual networks. So I'll wait for everything to open up properly. It's still doing something, so I'm just waiting for it to complete. Yeah, now it's done. So now we'll click on add roles and features. We'll go to next. We'll mention it as a role-based or feature-based installation. Next. We'll select the VM, which is this one. Next. And now at the end, we'll select the web server, IS, and features. And install. Alright, so this installation is completed. We'll close this. Now what we'll do is basically open this PC, go to Windows C, go to iNetwork, go to www.root, and here what we'll do is basically create a folder here, which will be as to do. Open this, and the first thing that I'm going to do is basically change, make this as file name, show the file name extension. Then I'll create a new file here, which is going to be our extra for now. I'll name this as default, and I'm not going to change the extension because I have to add an option here which will say h1. This is so okay. I'll save this, close this, and then I'll go ahead and change the extension to HTML. Okay, yes. So since this is done, so now what should happen is, like, once we access it using our public IP address, this should work. So let's go back and minimize this. Go to my Google Chrome and then take the public IP address. There you go. So once I typed in my, the public IP address /todo/default.html, this is what I see. So now let's try to open our VMB as well. So this is also has been provisioned. Let's go to the resource. Let's connect to it via our native RD. Select. So I basically logged on to my second VM, which is VMB, and the first thing that we'll try is basically accessing, the the HTML file that we created in our VMA using our public IP address, and which should work absolutely fine without any issues. And then we'll try to access it using our private IP address as well. So I'm just waiting for this to complete, and what we'll do is basically, yeah, it's taking time. So there you go. So it is accessible using our public IP address. Now what we'll do is basically go back and we'll go to our VMA, go to the overview, take the private IP address from here and go back to our server, and we'll try to access it using our private IP address. And this would definitely not work, because the two VMs are basically on two different virtual networks, and there is no connectivity by default which exists between them. So you can see it's still thinking about it, it's still doing something, but at the end it'll just give out an error message. You can see the page cannot be reached, right? So how you can basically create that peering between the two virtual networks is, if you go back to your portal.azure.com, and let's take one virtual network for example. So this is our VNet A. So we'll move on to our VNet A, and this is our virtual network. You can see this, and once you scroll down, you can see there is an option here which says peerings. And if you go to the peerings, you can see there is no peering, or there is no connectivity between, it's not connected to any other virtual networks. So what we have to do is basically add a connectivity here. So let's click on add, and you can look at this information here which says, for peering to work, two peering links must be created. So what would happen is basically there would be two connections would be created between this VNet, one from VNet A to VNet B and one from VNet B to VNet A. And that's what we are going to do now. So we'll name it as peering A, and we'll name this as peering. And I've sometimes seen it takes a lot of time for the resources to be updated in the Azure portal. So that's the reason it is showing that no virtual network is there in the subscription, but it is there. So there is a workaround which can be done. If you what you can do is you can get your resource ID and you can configure that. So let's click on I know my resource ID, and what needs to be done is, let's go back to our VMB. Let's go down to properties. Yeah, so there you go. So this is the resource ID, which we can just copy this. We can go back to the peering connection that we are creating. We can paste it over there. Oh, this is the virtual machine that I'm actually taking. So what we have to do is let's go back. Uh, okay. So in order to get the resource ID of the virtual network, go to your virtual network B, scroll down, go to the properties. There you can see this is the resource ID which is there. So you can copy this, go back and paste it here. And that's it. And once this is done, you can leave everything as is, the all the default connection as is, and click on add. So once you do that, it will take a moment for the connection to be created, and you can see this appearing A is being created in VNet A. Similarly, if you go to VNet B and if you go to peerings here, there will be connection which will be created here as well, which is peering B, and you can see disconnected now. So we'll give it some time and then we'll test the connectivity once again, using our private IP address. So now you can see, it is now getting connected through our private IP address. So this basically, you can, so this is how the virtual network peering works. So it can even, you can connect using your private IP address. All right. And now since, we have configured everything is working as properly, what you can do is basically, you can go back to your home screen. Since if you are following along, it's always a good practice to delete all your resources. So what you can do is you can go back to your portal.azure.com. You can click on all resources, and you can see these are all the resources which have been provisioned as part of this demo session. So what I'll do is basically I've created everything as part of this resource group, which is VNet Peering Test RG. So I'll open the resource group. I'll click on delete resource group, and then I'll copy this, the resource group name, just to confirm, otherwise it will not delete it, and then hit delete. So this will ensure whatever resources that you have provisioned is deleted and you don't incur charges, because all these resources, when they are running, would incur charges for you. So just ensure that you have deleted everything. All right, so I hope that was helpful. Thank you.